Hey, welcome to the How to Talk to Girls podcast. This is your host, Trip Kramer from tripadvice.com. Now, today's episode, we're doing it a little bit different than we have in a long time. It's just going to be you and I. That's right. There's no guests today. It's just you and I. I got some really great material to share with you, some really good stuff that I used when I was coaching a client just the other week, a guy that I took out, and some things that I was teaching him. And as I was teaching it to him, I thought, wow, this is something a lot of guys should know. Some stuff that I'm going to be teaching you here on the podcast, some stuff that you can use when you go out to meet women. So we'll get into that. Now, before we go into today's episode, which again, I'm really excited for because it's kind of relaxing to not have to sit here and interview a guest and it can just be you and I. But before I get into that, I want to make a quick announcement. This week, I have launched my new program, Hooked. So whether you're listening to this right now for the very first time and I just released it, or you're listening to this for the first time and it's maybe a year or 2 years later, go check out getherhooked.com. I've been working on this program for an entire year, and in this program, I teach you how to get women hooked on you. There are certain flavor formulas that you can use depending on what type of relationship you want with the girl, whether it be a one-night stand or a fuck buddy or a actual girlfriend, a long-term relationship. I go over all the different ways that you can get women hooked on you in these different situations. Again, that's getherhooked.com. I'll be honest with you, it feels weird but to advertise my stuff on here, but I'm really proud of it, and I know it's going to help you a ton. So if you're looking to take this to the next level and you're an avid podcast listener and you've listened to a lot of podcasts, that's great, and keep on listening. But also know that to really, really get help, a step-by-step program where I hold your hand the whole way through from A to Z is going to be that much more helpful. Either way, continue listening to today's episode where I'm going to be teaching you again some mantras, some principles that I taught my student. So we'll get to that in a second. Again, don't forget to go to getherhooked.com and watch that video that will explain everything in terms of how to get your hands on the new program. So excited about it. All right. Let's go into today's episode. So, like I said, I was coaching my client the other day, and I don't do much coaching anymore. At this point, I only take on a few students every single year, guys who are, really struggling and really want to put the work in because coaching is hard. I'm not going to lie. Coaching is obviously extremely beneficial, but it's hard. And it really takes a guy who's going to want to put his best foot forward because when we do coaching, I'm not talking over the phone coaching. I'm talking about in person. I'm talking we're going out to bars, we're going out during the day, we're going to public places, and we're approaching girls. We're talking to girls. More importantly, the client, you are going out and talking to girls. So that's what I'm doing when I'm doing coaching is I'm an approach coach, right? I help you, I tell you what to say, I get you out of your head. And there were some things that I mentioned to my student when we were working the other week together, some things to get him out of his head. Those are the things that we're going to be going over on today's episode. Some mantras that are really important. Some things that I want you to say to yourself constantly when you're going out. I know a lot of guys have a lot of trouble when it comes to approaching women. That's probably the number one question I get, not just in the YouTube comments, but when I do Facebook Live. I get that question a lot. How do I approach? What do I say? How am I supposed to start a conversation with a girl? How does the whole thing begin? I know guys have a lot of fears and anxiety around that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing the episode today, but that's one of the reasons why I do this coaching, because guys need that push. Now, some of the things that I was telling him in order to get him to be more confident were basically just telling him how much women want to be approached. That's not one of the mantras, but I still want you to know that in today's episode. Women want to be approached. I had to tell him that so many times. Not only do women want to be approached, but they also want to have sex. And they want to meet guys. And they want to meet single guys. And they want to meet single awesome guys. That's you. That's you who's listening right now. If you believe truly down in your heart that you are a quality guy, that you are deserving of a woman, then guess what? You deserve to meet a woman. And you should be pushing yourself to go out and talk to as many girls as possible. They want to meet you. A woman will not go and approach a man. It takes a lot of courage to be able to go up and actually approach a guy. And they won't do it because they want the guy to do it, not because they're lazy and not because they're fearful, but because that is kind of their test, right? They want to make sure that the guy that they're with is confident. They're looking for a confident guy. And what's one of the tests of confidence? A guy going up and starting conversation. That's what makes her feel attracted. The same way you might see a girl in a really tight skirt and be like, whoa, that girl's really attractive. Same exact thing happens when you go and approach a girl. The girl is going, wow, that's attractive. This guy's got confidence because he came up to me and started a conversation. And you better believe that if this girl is single and if this girl is willing to meet other guys, which she is if she's single, then she's going to appreciate you coming up to her and you giving her a shot. Yes, that's right. You're giving her a shot. See how I reversed that a little bit? Right? A lot of guys think, oh man, I hope this girl gives me a shot. That's the other way around. You want to give her a shot. You want to be in the mentality of, you know what, I see that girl over there and she's cute. I wonder if she's as cool as she is pretty. Because I know that's why you're going over to approach. That's why we do that, right? There's an initial spark of attraction. That girl's attractive, physically attractive. We go over there. It's up to you to say, you know what? I wonder if this girl is pretty cool. Again, this is not one of the mantras. I haven't even touched them yet. These are maybe bonuses, so to speak, here, but things you should be thinking about. Going up to a girl, understanding that it's you trying to see if she's cool, and understanding that she wants to meet a single guy if she's single. Okay? That's what is going on here. That's what's happening. Now, in order to do that, in order to make this easy for you, I'm going to be going over these mantras one at a time, things I want you to constantly say to yourself. And when I say mantra, what I mean is a statement or slogan repeated frequently. That is the actual definition. I'm reading the definition right now off of Google. A statement or slogan repeated frequently. So I want you to repeat these to yourself. I want you to say these things over and over and over in your head. And these three things will help you defeat that approach anxiety, that confusion, that, oh no, I'm talking to a girl now, what am I supposed to say? What am I supposed to do? Right? I want you to repeat these over and over to yourself. All right, I built this up way too much. Let's start with number one. The first one is this. And by the way, there's no order here. There might seem to be an order, but there's really no order here, okay? Here it is. Move toward the pain. Okay, that's the first mantra. Move toward the pain. I want you to say that to yourself constantly. Move toward the pain. A lot of guys will not approach because of that pain. There's this emotional pain that's happening. They feel so uncomfortable. They feel so anxious. And they're trying to do anything they can to move away from the pain, right? That's what we do as human beings. We don't want pain. We don't want physical pain. We don't want emotional pain. We try to get away from it, right? Whenever we feel that pain, the first thing is, how do I get out of this? How do I get this away from me as soon as possible? Well, here in this specific situation, we're talking about meeting women, talking to girls. I want you to move toward that pain. Okay? I want you to think about this pain as something that's positive. We're reframing this idea and we're making it more positive. Right now, you see it as negative. There's a girl over there. There's a lot of pain involved. I can't go up and talk to her. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. And then you don't do it. And then you run away, right? You run away and then you regret it later on. I want you to move toward that pain. That pain is good. That pain, that discomfort, that's telling you that this is the right thing to do. Let's compare this to working out, right? If you've ever worked out before, you know that some of those last reps are very painful. You're really breaking down the muscles when you're working out, right? You're building up that lactic acid. Maybe you're a runner. Maybe you're someone who gets a lot of cardiovascular exercise, right? There's pain involved there because you're breaking down the tissue and you're getting stronger. You want to move toward that pain, right? You want to be able to do those last reps on that last set because that's where growth happens. So don't move away from the pain, move toward the pain. And that's the same idea here. So think about that as you're going out and trying to meet women. If you feel the pain, move toward it. What's going to make you move toward it? Well, the fact that if you're moving toward it, you're going to end up approaching her. And if you move away from the pain, that means you're just sitting in this more comfortable spot where you don't have to go up and start a conversation. Okay, so that's the first mantra. Move toward the pain. Move toward the pain. You say it to yourself. You repeat it to yourself, okay, over and over and over again. Move toward the pain. That's the first one. That's the first one. Let's go over the second mantra. Again, the thing that you're going to be saying to yourself as you're going out and you're meeting more women. Here it is. Minimize the time from seeing the girl and approaching. I want you to say that to yourself. I'm going to minimize the time from seeing the girl to approaching. Meaning, when you see the girl, there's no waiting. Okay? There's no waiting at all. This is what I had to tell my client the other day, because he would sit there. He would look at the girl. He would look at her friends. He'd say, oh my God, they're so pretty. Oh my God, they're looking this way. Okay, they're talking to each other. And he'd start analyzing the whole situation. And if you've gone out and you've tried approaching and talking to girls, try to talk to girls at a party, at a bar, wherever, maybe during the day, you've noticed that you become an excuse machine. You start making so many excuses, and you start making this as fearful as possible. You build up the fear in your head. And more time that you allow between you and the approach, the more fearful it's going to be, the harder it's going to be, the more difficult it's going to be. You see a pattern here? And you're not going to be able to go up and do it. You're giving yourself more time to run away. And you're building up the pain. Again, connected to the first mantra here, move toward the pain, right? What's going to happen is you're going to be building this up so much in your head, the pain is going to be overwhelming, and it's going to be harder for you to move toward that pain. So let's make this painless, or as painless as possible. When you see the girl, you will minimize the time from seeing her to approaching. Meaning, right? Meaning you're going to approach her as soon as possible. There's no waiting. Don't think about it even for a second. You just go up and you start conversation. And this is the problem I see with most of my students who have a tough time approaching, is they don't minimize that time. Now, I'll say this. My client did excellent. Okay, I've worked with a lot of guys over the years and coached guys, took them out to bars, took them out during the day, took them out to clubs and lounges and things like that. And this guy ended up approaching about 99% of all the girls that I recommended he go up and talk to. And there's a lot, by the way, pretty much nonstop approaching and starting conversation. And he did every single one. And let me say, it's pretty difficult. I've worked with guys who, at some points, it takes them an hour to approach. Or I'll, tell them all these girls that they can go and talk to. I'll give them the opener, and they start going up and talking to them, and then they bail. They're about to go up there, and then they bail. Or they go up and they start conversation, and then they bail. This guy went up and did it to every single girl. Now you might be thinking, oh, Trip, he's good. He's got to be ahead of me. He's probably done this a lot more. He's used to it. No, actually, he hasn't. He is one of the most frightened guys I've ever worked with. He was very scared. He's, in his 30s, and he's trained himself his whole life to not talk to strangers. Can you imagine? You're 35 years old. Maybe you are right now listening to this, 35, and you've been constantly moving away from the pain and constantly trying to make sure you don't interact with anyone because you're so scared. And, a lot of guys, they're very strategic thinkers. So they think, well, unless I need to get something from this person, unless the conversation is going to be constructive, why should I talk to them? Right? A lot of girls will just kind of chit-chat and they talk about a lot of different things. Guys are kind of using language and communication as a way to get something, as a way to move forward with something. And so they will stay away from conversation. Well, girls will catch up and they'll gossip and do all those things. So a lot of guys don't have that practice, they don't have that practice of going up and talking to girls, just like this guy. He didn't have the practice. And so being that all these years he wasn't able to do that, this was pretty hard for him. But he wanted it really badly. That was the difference between him and some of my other clients. Obviously I pushed him, but there's only so much I can do. I can't pick him up and place him in front of a girl. There's only so much I can really do, right? He is going to have to make the decision himself, but he wanted it so bad. And of course we coached and I made it easy on him, and there's a whole method to my madness to get him to go up there. And really that method is just going up and starting light conversation and then working your way up. So maybe you go up to a girl just to help you get into a social mode and ask her where the bathroom is, or ask her what a good drink to get here is. Or if it's during the day, you ask a girl, where you can get a really nice button-down shirt, or ask her opinion on something that you're wearing, right? I call those warm-ups. And then from there, you can go further and further down the line and start conversations with intention of getting their number, or at least move the conversation to a level where you're flirting with them and you're asking them out. So this guy, he really wanted it. He really wanted to change. He really wanted to get better, and it was inspiring. I mean, it was inspiring for me to even see that. You know, a lot of guys don't push themselves that hard, and I think that we can all take a lesson from this. When you really want something, you're going to go after it, and you're going to do it even if you're scared. So I'm proud of him for moving toward the pain, and I'm proud of him for doing his best to minimize the time from seeing the girl and then approaching. Like I said, he was 99%, but still he would wait a while before he'd go up to the girl. I had to psych him out and get him to finally go up there and do it. But I could see the fear in his eyes grow as he waited longer and longer and longer. So I'd have to repeat in his head, minimize the time, go, 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 go. The longer you wait, the more painful it's going to be. The longer you wait, the more painful it's going to be. And he was like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. And then he would go and start talking to the girl. So we're 2 mantras in. Let's go to the third mantra. Again, just to recap here. First mantra, move toward the pain. Second mantra, minimize the time from seeing the girl to approaching. Approach right away. Now the third one was something that I had to tell him to get him to stay in the conversation. He would leave too early. He'd go up, talk to them for, I don't know, 2-3 minutes, at most 5, but that was even pushing it. And then he'd come back to me and I'd ask him, what happened and how did it go? And he said, I ran out of things to say. I said to him, well, why don't you just say anything? He's like, what do you mean say anything? I'm like, why don't you just keep talking? He's like, what do I talk about? I said anything. And that's how the third mantra came to be. When you're talking to girls or a group of people, the third mantra is this: always be talking, say anything. That's 2 parts. Always be talking, say anything. Okay? I want you to say that to yourself. This is the third mantra. Always be talking, say anything. Always be talking? Talking about what? Anything. It doesn't matter. Literally anything. You might be thinking, well, Trip, can I talk about this? I'm just going to answer right now, yes. The only thing I would say is, let's use common sense here. Let's not say anything completely creepy or overtly sexual that is going to creep her out. I don't think you're going to do that anyways. I think you're a better guy than that. Of course, you can say sexual things. There's a time and place for that. But let's just wait till you're a little bit more advanced and you're able to read the situation a little bit better when you're talking to girls. But just know this: you can say anything. Even if the conversation dies, you can bring up anything, even something that has nothing to do with you. So, for example, I actually had my student go up and I had him say as an opener, I've never been to Norway. Or I think he said, he said a question. He said, have you ever been to Norway? And I told him to go say that to a group of girls. And he told me, well, I've never been to Norway, so why would I ask that? I said, bro, you're too much in your head. It doesn't matter what you say. You can say anything. It doesn't matter if you've been to Norway or not. It doesn't matter if what you're talking about, you know everything about and can have a whole conversation about it. And that was the point I was trying to make. That's why I had him go up and say, have you ever been to Norway? And when he did that, what happened? He actually got into his longest conversation of the whole night, talking to 3 girls at the same time. And no girl was like, why are you coming up and talking to us about that? No girl was weirded out. In fact, they were interested in it. One of those girls happened to has visited Norway. She actually has been there before, right? So there you go. I even told him to go up to a couple girls and say, I like peanut butter. You know what? I fucking love peanut butter. Right? And he actually did love peanut butter, so he wasn't lying. It was something that he did. And then he got into conversation for a little bit. He still ditched out. I wanted him to stay in a little bit longer with that one. But the point here is you can say anything. You can go up to girls and you can just talk about anything you want, anything that's interesting to you. Something I actually talk about in my Hooked program is this idea of the law of state transference. And this is this idea that when you're talking to someone, the energy that you're putting out, the state that you're in, okay, more specifically, the emotions that you're emitting, those get picked up by the person you're talking to. So for example, if you're really sad and you go up to someone or you're talking to a friend and you're talking about depressing things, you're going to transfer that emotion onto the other person. The other person's going to start to feel sorry for you. They're going to feel a little sad and depressed themselves. Same thing is if you go up to someone all excited about something, you're going to start to feel excited. It's very easy for a human and a human to get together and connect with each other. Okay, emotions get transferred this way. It's called the law of state transference. So when you're going up to a girl and you're talking about something that's exciting to you or interesting to you, or something that you want to talk about, or something that's funny to you, right? Like going up to a girl and saying, I fucking love peanut butter, right? It's so ridiculous. But if that's funny to you, that's going to be funny to them too. They're going to be like, what is this guy talking about? They might be a little weirded out at first, but you just keep talking. Again, third mantra, always be talking, say anything. So I want you to be saying that to yourself in your head all the time. Always be talking, say anything. This is going to prevent you from leaving the conversation. In fact, all three of these mantras are created for you to be able to start the conversation, continue the conversation, and continue moving forward with the interaction. That's why I want you to move toward the pain, right? Moving toward the pain doesn't just have to do with going up to a girl and starting the conversation. You might be in the middle of a conversation being like, I don't know what to say next. And then you're like, oh, it's painful. And then you walk away because you're trying to get away from the pain. I'm telling you, stay in conversation, move toward the pain. What's next? Always be talking, say anything. I want you to take these mantras, write them down, okay? Write them all down and say them to yourself. Put them on your phone, put them on a piece of paper, and read them to yourself so you memorize them and you say them to yourself every single time you go out and try to meet women. And I promise you, the more and more you repeat these mantras to yourself, the more and more they start to soak into your subconscious and you start to really understand them and they become part of you to the point where you're never even going to need them anymore. And then you're going to be automatically moving toward the pain, minimizing the time from seeing the girl to approaching. And then, of course, you're just always going to be talking and saying anything. They're going to become habitual, and that's what I want for you. So in order to make them habitual, you need to repeat them over and over and over. So use those. I'm so glad to be back here talking to you. I'm going to be doing some more podcasts solo for a while. Every once in a while I'll throw in a little interview. I got some good guests coming up here soon in the next couple of weeks that I really think you're going to enjoy. Or if you're listening to this a year later, well, check the next episodes chronologically and you'll see who's coming. But otherwise, I'm going to be doing a lot of these and going further in detail about how to get better with women, how to meet girls, how to talk to girls, of course, because that's what the podcast is called, and getting you to the next level. So, like I said, again, don't forget to check out getherhooked.com. That's my new program. It launches today. Actually, as I record this, it is launching today and should be available to you pretty much anytime you're listening to this. Hopefully, even if you're listening to this 5 years later, it's still available. Getherhooked.com. Thanks for listening. This was a great episode. I hope it helped you. Remember the 3 mantras. Write them down. I'll see you on the next episode.